morning, Captain Ruddick. Good morning, class. I'm Cadet 3rd Class Farah, and today I'm going to be briefing you on my solution to the moon landing problem. In overview, I'm going to be going over my listed response to the moon landing scenario, how I use the OODA loop to attain this response, and why I use the OODA loop to attain this response. So jumping right in, I prioritized at the top of my list the two 100-pound tanks of oxygen, at number 2 the 5 gallons of water, number 3 the food concentrate, number 4 the stellar map, number 5 the 50 feet of rope, number 6 the solar powered FM receiver, number 7 the first aid kit, number 8 the parachute silk, number 9 the dehydrated milk, number 10 the portable heating unit, number 11 the self-inflating raft, number 12 the signal flare, number 13 the two 45 caliber pistols, number 14 the magnetic compass, and number 15 the matches. Now it's not really important that you know my list back to front, but I'm just going to give that to you guys as a background before I move into specifically how I use the OODA loop to attain this specific response. Now for those of you who don't remember or just don't know what the OODA loop is, it's one of the problem solving methods that we covered in chapter 6. It's probably the simplest one, and it's just a simple acronym with OODA, with the first O representing observation, the second O representing orient, the D representing decide, and the A representing act. Now in terms of the specific scenario, to start, during the observation stage, and the observation stage in the OODA loop primarily is just 1, identifying that you have a problem, and 2, identifying what that problem is. In this specific scenario, the observation stage is fairly simple. We're landing on the moon, we needed to be here, but we're here. So we've assessed what our main problem is and the fact that we have it, but another stage in the observation step is determining 2 things. What you know, what you don't know. In my specific scenario, I know from the problem that I'm on the light side of the moon, that I'm 200 miles away from my intended landing site, and I know the 15 items that I have at my disposal. What I don't know in my given scenario is that while I know that I'm 200 miles off of my intended target, I don't know in what direction respective to my target I am. I also don't know what the path between me and my target looks like, and I don't know if anybody knows that I need help and that I'm in trouble. So now that I've identified what the problem is, and what I know and what I don't know, it's time to move on to the second stage in the OODA loop, and that second O stands for orient. Now orient just means basically assessing what situation you're in, and then setting goals to achieve your overall end game, which in this case would be, for me, to get to my intended landing zone. Now, my given situation, orienting myself to my given situation, I am 200 miles off of my intended target. I have no means to get there besides my own 2 feet, so I'm going to be walking 200 miles in a direction I do not know yet to get to safety. And with that in mind, I'm going to prioritize challenges that I need to set goals to overcome. The first challenge associated with traversing the moon, and probably the most obvious, is that I can't breathe. So I need to find a way to breathe on the moon. The second one is that based on my observation, I know that I'm 200 miles away from my intended landing zone. Don't ask me how, I just know. Now, giving an estimate that I can walk 20 miles in a day, at best, that's a liberal estimate. I know that's going to take me at least 10 days to get to my intended target. So dehydration and starvation are both factors when I'm traversing the moon. So I'm going to need to find a way to find water, given my resources, and to find food, given my resources. Next, I don't know where I am in relation to where I need to be. So I'm going to need to find a way to navigate the surface of the moon. Next, I don't know even if I know what direction I'm supposed to be heading in, I don't know what obstacles lie between me and my intended destination. And finally, I don't know if anyone else knows that I'm in trouble and what situation I'm in. So I need to find a way to communicate with them what my situation is. So that's going to be my last goal. Now that I've established what my situation is, and from that, the goals that I need to achieve to reach my end game, it's time to move on to the next step in the OODA loop process, which would be the D, which stands for decide. Now, the decision stage is really just establishing a plan to meet the goals that you set in the orient stage. In my specific case, the first challenge that I identified with traversing the moon is that I need to find a way to breathe on the moon. And therefore, obviously, my first prioritized item in my list is going to be the oxygen tanks. Next, I identified that I need water. So my next prioritized item is going to be the 5-gallon tank of water. Next, I need food. So naturally, the next prioritized item is going to be the food concentrate. I need to find a way to navigate the surface of the moon. So the next item is going to be the stellar map, so I can navigate my way to where I need to go. Next, I need to find a way to navigate unseen obstacles between me and my intended destination. So in this case, I'm going to use the rope just in case I need it to traverse those obstacles. And the last, I need to find a way to communicate my situation. And given that, the next prioritized item that I'm going to have on my list is going to be the FM receiver. Now, this is what the process I use to go through every item, with the items that I had no use for and subsequently I had no goals that involved them being the last on the list. But basically, I use this for every item, and I could go through all of those items, but it's not that important. I think you guys understand at this point how I specifically use the OODA loop to obtain my list. So with that, I'm going to move on to the final stage in the OODA loop, which is act. Now, this is simply act. You just need to act on the plan that you set out during the decision stage. So in my case, I'm going to put on my oxygen tank, I'm going to grab my food, my water, my map. I'm going to use my map to get me in the right direction. I'm going to use my rope to traverse any unforeseen obstacles along my path to my intended destination. And I'm going to use the FM receiver to contact people and let them know what my situation is. Now, one important thing to note is that while I grouped all my problems together, made them into one big situation, had all of my plans and goals together, in reality, I probably attacked these using the OODA loop as they come. So, for example, my first issue is I need to find a way to breathe. So I observed the issue that I can't breathe on the moon. I've oriented myself to the situation that I need to find a way to breathe on the moon. I've decided that, hey look, I have these tanks of air right here, and I've acted on that decision and actually used the tanks of air to breathe on the moon. And I would go through this for each item in a real life scenario, but I just grouped them together for the sake of this presentation. Now, I specifically chose the OODA loop just due to the time restraint associated with this problem. If I were actually in this situation, I'm 200 miles away from help, I'm on the light side of the moon, it's really hot, I'm running out of oxygen, I'm not going to have the time to consciously go through the steps of some of the other processes, like in the 8-step process or the AppTech process. There's a chance that I would maybe go through some of these steps while using the OODA loop subconsciously, but when I'm laying out what I need to do, I want to use the best problem-solving method, the simplest problem-solving method. Also kind of leading into that, I chose the OODA loop because of the complexity of the problem, or rather the non-complexity of the problem. A lot of the other problem-solving methods really dive into the equivalent of the observation stage, and they really spend a lot of time focused on deciding what your problem is. And that's great for problems that are more complex than this one, for sure. Problems where you may not even know what the problem is to begin with. But in this situation, we're going to know what the problem is almost immediately, and we need to decide and act on it. So I need to choose a problem-solving method that doesn't spend a whole lot of time dwelling in that kind of observe and orienting state. And I believe the other problem-solving methods do that, while the OODA loop is a bit more expedited in that situation or in those steps. In summary, I went over my listed response to the moon landing problem, how I used the OODA loop to attain this response, and why I used the OODA loop to attack this problem. That concludes my briefing. Are there any questions?